Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And miracles do happen, Matt. I'm just going to go ahead and start the show. Michigan upsets Ohio State. Thing ever. Because, what, 6-5? 6-5. And everything that I've been saying about sign stealing and Harbaugh needing to cheat, it's pretty much proven false at this point. Because Harbaugh is one of the best records, I think, in the NFL. I'll bring that up here, and we'll start with that. But all of the narratives coming from mainly Ohio State, so give them credit. They have great PR, it seems like. The Chargers are 8-4. So he's already had a 4 times better season than Urban Meyer had in the NFL. And this is like, he already won with the Niners. So people can't say like, well, the Niners had great culture. Because when he came there, the Niners sucked. When he went to Stanford sucked. So maybe Harbaugh's just a good coach. So Ohio State had ESPN, Thamel, or whatever that guy's name is, all these reporters like saying that Michigan and Harbaugh just weren't good. And not true. That's like, to me, that's the most unbelievable thing where they can say like, well, if you look at his stats, like when they started stealing signs, they have to beat like Ohio State. Like they had needed to. Otherwise, they can't beat Ohio State. Ohio State's unbeatable. And then this year, the line was like 20-something points. It's the greatest upset, I think, in the history of the game. At the Horseshoe, no excuse. I kept waiting for them to like turn it on. I thought, I'll just go ahead and like prepare myself mentally to do like Christmas decorations during this time, because then, you know, something you don't want to do anyway. And so the whole time I'm like, we're going to win this game. As soon as I saw them come out, I thought, oh my gosh, Michigan's going to win. Because he looked so uncomfortable out there and his team looked uncomfortable. You could see it on TV. And I thought, well, they're not going to be like that the whole game. There's no way. They're going to come out, hit a big play. They're going to wake up, right? I can see why they're nervous, because he knows that they need to win the game. He needs to win this game or he's on the hot seat, no matter what happens, because this Michigan team's bad on offense, not defense. Defense, I've been saying all year that Wink seems like he's been overcompensating for the poor offense. And I think I'm pretty much right. If you watch how the game played out, he didn't overcompensate. I think his goal was to, if we keep it close, maybe we'll win. He didn't try to do any risky like interception type coverages, which he had been doing and getting. Everything was kind of just, let's rush our best guys. They can't block them. We'll just rush 4. He did that one play like late in the game. Michigan called a timeout, but he had a delayed like linebacker blitz. Brilliant. Unblocked. Like Howard would have got killed if Michigan didn't call a timeout, like on one of the last plays of the game. And I thought, oh my gosh, like just destiny, this defense. Will Johnson's out, so they don't even have the best guys in. The best, that's what, well, let's go back a little bit before I get into why I think Ryan Day lost. The narrative, going back to that, it's changed every year, where I talked about the Tyson fight, how that one guy was just making excuses for his girl losing the fight. And I said, like, it's almost like he's from the Ryan Day school of excuses. That's what Ohio State's been doing for 4 or 5 years now. Going back to 2019, where the sign stealing started, because it's been proven that Ryan Day had Don Brown signs. I've seen the document. The document included photos of the Michigan scoreboard of Don Brown. So that flies in the face of Ohio State's like, no, we didn't have anyone in the stadium taking photos. It's a lie, because I've watched hundreds of football games on TV. They never show the in-game stadium scoreboard. Why would they? Right? So they can't pretend that they pulled that footage from the TV. So Ryan Day had Don Brown signs. Harbaugh was clearly pissed off the next year. I think Ohio State won like 60-something to 39. It was like Ryan Day's first year, 2019. Ryan Day's only win in the Michigan game. The next summer, the year before COVID, I'm pretty sure, Ohio State had pictures on their Instagram or Twitter of analysts working on the field running drill against the rules, or it used to be against the rules. So the series based 2 NCAA rules. Now, because Hardball called out Ryan Day's, they're like, hey, he's like, hey, I saw those videos you guys are posting. And Ryan Day said something like, you worry about your program, I'll worry about mine. And the Big Ten, of course, they didn't do anything. Now the NCAA said you can have unlimited analysts, right? Just stealing thing. Oh, that the analyst thing was a cost-saving thing. Now with people getting paid, we don't care. The helmet cams or whatever, that was a cost-saving measure. Now we don't care anymore. But up until that point, Harbaugh calls them out. Ryan Day fires back. Harbaugh gave the shot to the heart where he said Ryan Day was born on third base. And that killed him. He's dead. Ryan Day is dead inside because that summer, Harbaugh said that he was born on third base. Ryan Day got really pissed off and said he's going to hang 100 on him. He hasn't scored 100 yet, Matt. He's like at 8 since that comment in 4 games. So everyone kept saying, like, I talked to a lot of Michigan fans over the past weekend just to kind of get a feel. First win in 2021, the majority said that was the best win. To me, it wasn't, because talking to Ohio State fans around here, they all said the same thing. Like, yeah, you guys were bound to win one, right? It was in Michigan Stadium, so it was at home. Like, of course, Michigan's supposed to win the rivalry every. So I think that first one, all the Ohio State fans kind of blew that off. Yeah, it's once a decade, right? They win a game. Not a big deal. Michigan pounded them in Ohio Stadium. Donovan Edwards had the 2 long runs. They brought in Jim Knowles. They blamed it on the defense, right? Ryan Day came out and said, gave up too many yards on the run. We're going to bring in Jim Knowles. And then Michigan crushed them. Again, both games were like 40-something to 20-something. From Ohio State fans, then I started to hear, it was only 5 big plays. If you take those 5 big plays out of the game, Ohio State wins, right? Don't count them. Doesn't matter. You guys got lucky. That was 2 in a row. And then the sign stealing stuff came out last year. So then it switched to, well, stealing signs. So those 2 wins don't count at all, right? Man, even though Ryan Day said he switched his signs for 2022, it didn't count. And the first one, I actually forgot. They also said CJ Stroud for one of those games, he was sick. Their guys were sick, Matt. That's why they didn't win. It's like, yeah, Stroud, he can't really do it. He's sick out there. So last year, 2022 to me was the best one because it was in their home stadium. We crushed them. And then Michigan won back-to-back Big Ten titles. It was on the road. Like, no one wins in Ohio Stadium or whatever they call it, the horseshoe. No one wins there, really. And so to win by such a crushing margin and having the Michigan guys plant the flag, yell at them, wave goodbye to their own fans, that was crazy. Then Michigan got upset by TCU, and then everyone came back last year. And then Harbaugh suspended, Connor Stallions is fired, and Michigan's supposed to lose, right? All I hear is, well, it's over for you guys. The cheating's over. You're not going to win. And then, of course, Michigan wins again last year and then wins the national championship. But I kept hearing, well, you guys were of course, even though Stallions is gone and Harbaugh was suspended, you still cheated and you paid to have Blake Corum come back, right? You paid to have him come back, and JJ, that's a once in a lifetime thing. Never going to happen again. In fact, Ohio State was bragging this year that they were going to do the Michigan blueprint, pay for all their guys to come back to win a national championship, right? They brought a lot of their guys back, brought in some heavy transfers, copied Michigan's plan for last year's national championship to a T. Did the same exact thing. Lose to Oregon. Blame it on the refs or whatever, right? Blame it on the time, like, hey, they added extra time or whatever they did. Or no, Lanning took the penalty. Changed another NCAA rule, right, for Ohio State. Had to. Ryan Day got ripped off. So when Michigan won this year, to me, that's the number 2 greatest win in the past 4 years. 2022, no one expected them to win 2 in a row. And then this year, no one expected them to win it at all. I was keep it close, running the clock like we did.
and they never did anything.
But see, this is one of the things that stood out to me, and again, I'm not going to lay claim that I understand the ins and outs of Ohio State's offense, but for the offense looks like it's still really heavy being Ryan Day's offense. Even though they have Chip Kelly, like it doesn't remind me of the Chip Kelly offenses.
Well, the running does to me. They run that zone like stretch play. What they run that 5 times for no yards? Like the rushing was like they only had 60 yards rushing. Every time they ran the ball, I was like, yes, keep running the ball. Like I didn't see anything. Ryan Day, I think last time what they say he passed most of the with CJ Stroud, of course. They passed it a ton. They passed a ton more. But even this year, you're right. They did pass more than what Chip Kelly would have done. It was like 2 to 1 maybe in terms of passing, which Chip Kelly was more relying on, at least from what I remember at Oregon. They ran a lot, but they didn't do it this year, right?
Yeah.
So the line play too. Like you bring all your guys back. Why is Michigan's offensive line that struggled all year able to just push your guys around? What? Like, what are you doing? You brought your defensive guys back. Was it Sawyer, the guy that had the interception? I mean, Michigan tried to give the game away, dude. Driving down, through the interception. I was mentally in my head counting seconds, thinking, all right, we're not going to score running the ball on first down, right? But if we can run it 3 times in a row, we could probably eat another 2 minutes off the clock, maybe. And then they're like, no, come on, bro. We're going to just throw an interception first play. We're eating any time off the clock. Are you kidding me? And then I kept waiting for them to do the end of halftime offense, right? The one that worked where they just threw the ball around. And they only had one drive that worked. It was insane. I went back and rewatched it. And honestly, is it Smith? Is that the freshman receiver? He should have been called for 3 offensive pass interferences. I don't care what Joel Klatt said. The offensive guy cannot make contact with the secondary past 5 yards. He can't run up to the 10-yard line and push the guy, because Klatt said during the broadcast, well, you can see he pushed him, but he didn't extend his arms. It doesn't matter. You can't run into the guy and push him at all. That was their only touchdown. Like, you just can't run into the safety, knock him down, and then be wide open. That 100% should have been offensive pass interference. And then I went back to the first throw they took to him to the end zone. They called defensive pass interference on Michigan. Our guy didn't even touch him. Smith had his face mask. That should have been another offensive pass interference. And then the other offensive pass interference on the left side, again, awful throw by Howard. Smith ran into our guy, which neither guy went down. It's just a bad pass. And I'm tired. I hate how officials can just bail out awful passes. Honestly, I thought it was 1-for-1 in the game. I'm just throwing that out there. Michigan's like trick play where the receiver threw it. I thought the same thing. It was so badly underthrown that shouldn't have been a pass interference either. But since they called it on Michigan when Ohio State had a pass like that, then of course I'm okay with them calling it for against Ohio State too. So to me, those offset. But the other two, the face mask and him running and scoring a touchdown, to me were like so insane. Like if Joel Klatt's trying to talk the fans into realizing that should have been an offensive pass interference, but he didn't really want them to call it because Ohio State needed to win, right? He needed to win a game. Did you listen to the game? Did you watch a game live?
Yeah.
Dude, Gus Johnson, what the hell is he doing? He squealed like a girl on that Jack Sawyer interception. I think it was Jack Sawyer, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me that he's not cheering for Ohio State. People reference, like, I guess when he was a kid, he said he was a Michigan fan growing up. Something had to happen. I think they said he married, his wife went to Ohio State or something. So like his in-laws are Ohio State fans. He has to cheer for Ohio State. Every year watching the game, he's like cheering for Stroud. This year was so over the top. He even made a cheating comment at the end. and then blame Michigan for the fight after. But if you watch, so they had from the press box. Ohio State started that fight at the end of the game. 100%. Michigan guys were on the middle of the field celebrating. Ohio State's were in the end zone. The entire team was in the end zone singing their fight song or whatever they do. They do like what Notre Dame does, right? The alma mater in the end zone. Their whole team just started running to the middle to take Michigan on in a fight. 100% shouldn't have happened. 100% Ohio State's fault. Gus made it seem like, because they didn't show that part on the broadcast, Gus made it seem like Michigan just started fighting Ohio State during the handshaking, right? Because I thought, oh man, you know how the coaches run out and shake hands? I thought that they just all started fighting right there. No, that's not what happened. So Gus lied about it on the broadcast. Michigan guys were on the middle of the field celebrating. You can blame it on the flag, because that's what Sawyer was crying in the one video. They planted the flag on our field, bro. I'm not letting them do it again. That's what he said. So it's 100% because Michigan was out there with the flags and Ohio State ran out and tried to fight them. Which to me, their program has to be in the dumps. They reported that after the game, players were fighting up against each other in the Ohio State locker room. I think they said they went after the kicker too, which I thought that kicker was good all year. I looked up his stats because I think even your bro was like, he's been bad all year. He only missed one kick all year. I didn't watch their games, but unless he's doinking everyone off the field goal post and in like Tecmo Super Bowl, I think one missed kick a year is pretty good going into the game. Then he missed a 2 against Michigan, of course. So I did think it was funny that while the guys are fighting, our kicking team stood out there and made the Ohio hand signals. Did you see that photo?
No.
I'll send it to you because I saw a lot of people commenting like, look at these bench warmers making the signs. No wonder they're not getting in the fight. Look how small they look. It was our kicking team, bro. And they won the game. Our kicker is a beast. Zavada. I told you. He should have won the Heisman. 50-yarder, like nothing. When Ohio State's guy with the heavy winds couldn't even make a kick. And then he hit the game winner. And then he went out there and I think he was the I in Ohio. Unless he was the O, I can't. But I watch a game. I heard the excuses. Now this year there's no excuses. I've seen Ohio State fans just be completely in the anger stage, right? Of like it shouldn't have happened. Now it's 4 in a row. So you can go back and say like, was it sign stealing? Hell no, that wasn't it. Maybe it's just because Michigan's been running all over you guys for 4. Because first year Hassan Haskins ran for like 200 yards. Donovan Edwards ran for 200 yards or whatever. Blake Corum last year, after Zinter went down, he scored on that long run and then flashed a 6.5 late in the game to put it away. And then this year, Ohio State had 1 yard in the fourth quarter? 1 yard in the entire fourth quarter, Matt. On that last drive when they threw to Henderson, I think in the. How is that even possible that you go an entire quarter with 1 yard and I think 7 plays or something like that? Three plays before and a punt, and then four and out at the end of the game. Michigan hasn't punted in the fourth quarter since 2019 against Ohio State. That's why they're losing, dude. It has nothing to do with signs. The line from Michigan is just crushing them. Crushing them. And I'm not even saying that I'm happy about Michigan's year, because if Michigan hadn't choked against 10 and Illinois and Indiana, would be in the playoffs. This Ohio State win would have put everything at 10-2. Michigan fired Kirk Campbell, offensive coordinator. To be honest, the last 2 games look so different. I think Sherrone Moore was calling the plays. The Ohio State game felt more like Michigan last year and on offense when he was the offensive coordinator. I think that's the rumor, is that he'd been calling plays anyway since the Underwood signing. Told Underwood that Campbell wasn't going to be there, is the rumor, whenever he flipped from LSU to Michigan. I don't know who the offensive coordinator is going to be. I hope we can bring in a big name. But the talent's going to be there going forward with Ohio State. Miller Moss entered the transfer portal. There's been rumors that he wants to come to Michigan to be the bridge. So we could potentially have Miller Moss and then Underwood the next year. Two top recruited quarterbacks back to back. And then Michigan's defense. There's rumors that some back guys that are going to be drafted kind of high, which I'm excited about. I don't want to throw any names out there in case it doesn't come true. Honestly, they've done enough. You win the national championship, guys, go get paid. Like, don't even play in a bowl game. I don't care. I don't care who we play. I'd rather have the young guys get experience and those other guys. Because I remember when Jake Butt got hurt against Ohio State, right? Or not Ohio State, Florida State, right? In the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
Ruined his NFL career. He never bounced back. Did he need to play in that game? No. Did that game matter for either program? No. Rest up, hang out, do whatever you want to do. Like Will Johnson didn't play. Loveland was out. If both of them didn't play in a bowl game, matter. We just won't beat Ohio State without them. Right? I don't know what the matchup's going to be, but I honestly think I've been very impressed with Sharon Moore. Number one, he's won every rivalry game this year. The 3 trophy games, Michigan State and Northwestern, which you think those teams aren't really that good. But he's winning them. Harbaugh struggled with Michigan State when they weren't that good. And then Ohio State, who is good. I was down on them, honestly. Remember in the middle of the year, I was saying like maybe we move on from him after 1 year. No. You crush Ohio State like that, where Ryan Day's on TV saying, "What happened?" while his team's fighting. Did you see that clip?
Yeah.
They're like, "What happened?" And the guy's like, "They planted the flag on our field, bro." Why fight after the game? I don't get it. Someone said that Michigan's been in more post-game fights than any other program. It's like, yeah, but why are they fighting us? It's Michigan State and Ohio State because they're crying. It's not like every team's fighting us, right? That's basically the only 2 teams, I think. I've seen Ohio State give a double bird when their guy got ejected in 2013, way before Harbaugh was there. So, yeah, when you put your entire season on beating Michigan, and then you talk all offseason about how you spent $20 million to copy Michigan with a better roster, right? They said Michigan only won because they had seniors come back. Ohio State was going to take it a step further and bring in high-profile transfer like Judkins, who did nothing in the game, and Howard, which I knew Howard was a bad move. I think I said that in the summer because McCord to me was accurate and he was raw. I knew this year he'd have a better season than he did with Syracuse, but they needed a scapegoat last year. They made McCord the scapegoat because he threw that pick at the end of the game. And I thought that was a bad move because I remember Haskins coming in, rest in peace, and he shredded Michigan's defense. So to me, I'm more afraid of Ryan Day's offense when they have an accurate passer. Haskins, CJ Stroud, Cal McCord to an extent. Like, it's not McCord's fault that Harrison Jr. didn't fight through Will Johnson and let him intercept the ball in the 20-yard line, whatever that was. Right? And even the game-ending interception, I think he threw to Harrison again. Yeah, it kind of ended up short, but he didn't try to get that ball. So at some point, yeah, let's scapegoat McCord. I wish Michigan would have brought him in. I think we would have made the playoffs if we had McCord this year. I wonder too. Now with we'll talk about the playoffs here in a second. But I wonder, like Milroe, that was rumored to possibly enter the transfer portal. I wonder if he regrets staying at Alabama. They might not make the playoffs depending how the championship games go. They're in right now as the 11 seed, the very bottom seed. Does he regret going back to Bama? Because everything that I predicted happened. He's in a system that he doesn't fit with DeBoer there. And Alabama has not looked the same. Get Milroe out of there. If he would have transferred to a program like Michigan that was running an offense fit for him, and then have DeBoer bring in his own quarterback, I think both programs would have had better seasons. Instead, Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. Bama shoehorning Milroe in because they can't bench the guy, right? He just took them to the Rose Bowl and won the SEC. Then it's a struggle. So that's what I want. State coming in with Ryan Day, you can't fire him. He's like 66-10.
I think you can.
He's only lost 5 games in the Big Ten, Matt, in like 6 years.
I don't care. He lost the games that mattered.
He lost 5 games. 4 of them were Michigan. 1 was Oregon.
And of those games that he lost to Michigan, how many of those cost them Big Ten?
Every year. Every year, Michigan, Ohio State, the past 3 years was for the Big Ten. This year, it was Oregon for the Big Ten, and they lost. And then they lost to Michigan, too. But who are they going to get better? They going to bring back Urban? I don't think any coach that came back for a second term at the same school had a better second term.
Well, one, I don't think that
maybe Bill Snyder,
would be Urban. Yeah, possibly Snyder.
I think he might be the only one I could think of that came back to Kansas State, right? For people that aren't aware, he was Kansas State's coach in the 90s. They moved on. They struggled. He came back, and then they've been solid since, and now he's gone. That's the only thing I can think off the top of my head. But you don't think it's going to be Urban, right?
I don't think it would be, but I feel like if there's a program where, and again, this is coming off of Norvell having a 2-win season at Florida State. Like, if you're Ohio State and you're recruiting at the level that they are, where consistently they're top 5 recruiting classes, they have more than enough NIL packaging to pay for any player that they want. You just went out and hired Chip Kelly, who's one of the most veteran, seasoned coaches that you can get.
It'll be Chip.
Well, I mean, you know, I don't know
Chip's in his Rich Rod years, bro. Chip's Rod years. It's all downhill from here.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know who the right person would be for that situation.
You need a defensive guy. Would it be Vrabel? Is he, because he's rumored to go to the Browns? Would he take a? I mean, he has no experience, so I could see the recruiting dropping off.
Well, and I just saw a thing, like, he wants to be back in the NFL. He doesn't want the college game because
who would want that?
There's some people that they play better. Well, and their game is more suited for the college game.
I think it's also NIL now, where like Sharon Moore seems to be young enough to where I don't think he would jump to the NFL. I think he seems to really enjoy the NIL type of stuff. So he's going to do that. And you're kind of just scheming, which he does do in terms of like game planning. But a lot of the stuff that like Harbaugh had been doing, like in terms of pumping players up and NIL type things, it's been kind of hinted at that it was all Sharon Moore whenever Harbaugh was here. That's why Harbaugh kind of put him as coach in waiting, where it's like, this guy seems to really be into it. NFL staff, he wants to stay in college. I'm saying like, oh, I'm going to just leave you behind because you're the only coach that I don't want. Because that's kind of what it seemed like at the beginning of the year, where it's like, why is Sharon Moore left behind? He took everyone else with him. I mean, and he did it at awful timing. So honestly, Sharon Moore, everyone kept using that as an excuse of like, he hasn't been here long. But the last couple of weeks, man, taking control, firing the offensive coordinator that everyone knew was a problem, taking control of the offense, check, that worked out, beat Ohio State because of it. And then recruiting has been picking up, and he's bringing in boosters that we didn't even know we had. Like big money boosters, more than any other program other than like maybe Texas and A&M. No one else can match that. So at this point, it's like, if you're Ohio State, yeah, you have to be a little worried. Because the Michigan NIL stuff, I've been saying is something that excites me. I've been saying before, like, the reason Michigan won the last year wasn't because of all the sign stealing stuff or whatever. It was 100% because NIL allowed them to bring Blake Corum back and a bunch of other key vets, and they were able to transfer in starters from other programs like Hinton, that I think is still in the program now, I think he might have to graduate this year. But guys that were like starters at Stanford or Henderson from Arizona State, and then like Josiah Stewart that killed Milroe on that last play. I think it was him that blew that play up from like Coastal Carolina. Michigan was grabbing like the top guys from every program. Wallace, that locked down Washington from UMass. Don Brown sent him up. Like, okay, awesome. So that doesn't happen without the NIL. And even back in like the 80s when Michigan was great, I honestly, they were probably paying bagmen just like SEC and Ohio State schools. Until the Chris Webber thing happened, you can kind of Weber investigation happened and Michigan had to cut ties with boosters. That's when the football team started to lose to Ohio State. That's when the basketball team dropped off until Beeline, who's just a great coach. And then Harbaugh came back and won without top recruits. He tried with top recruits, but then they kept transferring out, right? It's hard to keep everyone happy. NIL, you can keep people happy because you're saying, hey, you're playing and your Michigan fans are everywhere. So you're making top NIL dollar from people buying like your buffs, like Will Johnson. Alabama made a run at him. You jumped Alabama. If you already have a brand at Michigan where fans are paying you, and yeah, you got turf toe or whatever. I hope he recovers. I don't think it will hurt his draft stock, right? I knew he wasn't going to come back and play. Why would he risk that? He had 4 interceptions this year, 2 for touchdown. He's locked in. One of the top draft picks. Don't play, dude. We're already eliminated from the playoffs. Don't play. Get yourself healthy. Ohio State had that with Bosa, remember? But they were in the playoff race. And then one of the receivers sat out too. I can't remember which one. But the NIL, when Michigan had to cut booster ties, you could kind of see where the SEC type stuff kind of took over. SEC didn't get hit. To my knowledge, I think it was only Michigan and SMU with their Pony Express that have ever had booster penalty. All the basketball booster stuff, Kansas didn't get anything with Bill Self. So listening to like Bill Self and the same commentators that are congratulating Kansas basketball comments, because I see them from like USA Today about how Sharon Moore is like a known cheater. It's like, give me a break, dude. You're over here writing love letters to Kansas. Are you serious at all? Like, what are you talking about? Just because it's legal now doesn't mean it was legal when he was getting investigated from the FBI. Sharon Moore wasn't investigated by the FBI. Yeah, he deleted texts, but then he turned his phone over immediately and recovered him because he knew he wasn't tied in with Stallions as whatever. His disguise. That's the only penalty, which we still don't know about. But I'm glad Ohio State fans are now scared. Their coach looks scared. Even after the game, he was just in a daze. And I feel bad for him. But the team takes after their head coach. If he comes out nervous, to your point, I don't think they can fire him. But you're right. If the Michigan game is more important to them than any other game, they'll fire him at the end of the year. He has to be so nervous now that they're not going to win the national championship. Will Howard's not accurate. I have another question for you since you watch a game. Do you think he had a concussion?
I don't know.
Because I had my Ohio State buddy text me during the game. I said, dear boy has a concussion. He's done. And then the guy they ran out was like number 33 or something like that. And I said, dude, Michigan's nervous now? Your quarterback is wearing number 33 or whatever he's wearing, 30 something, I thought. I said, how is this even going to be a thing? And then, of course, Howard comes in, and I said, oh, they're throwing him back out to the Wolves. His first pass, dude, was 20 yards out of bounds to a guy running an out route. And I thought, he's done. he 100% has a concussion. Like, he's back out there trying to Tua it. I saw him yelling at the trainers that he is good. And I thought, they're going to put him back in. And after that, he threw so many airmailed footballs that I thought he is not 100%. Not saying that was the reason why they lost, but I was thinking, I don't know if it was Urban was still coaching, but when Haskins came in, both times their starting quarterback got hurt. JT Barrett went down, and then was it still JT Barrett? He was there for like 20 years. the first one was Cardale Jones, right? JT Barrett breaks his leg against Michigan. Cardale Jones comes in, and Urban has him win the national championship. He was like the third string quarterback. The next time the quarterback gets hurt, Haskins comes in. Michigan has the lead, and Haskins leads them to a win. That's why I'm still scarred against quarterbacks that are accurate for Ohio State. Ryan Day, the quarterback goes down. He has no backup quarterback. They're bringing in 5-star quarterbacks every year. Why don't I prepare? Right? Michigan's quarterbacks transferred out. Joe Milton was at Tennessee. Got drafted by the Patriots, right? Bowman transferred back to Oklahoma State. State at Michigan this year. I don't know. Like everyone, JJ, I think Bowman transferred out because JJ made it seem like if Harbaugh came back, he was coming back. And Harbaugh made a late decision, and then JJ moved late. And by that time, Sherrone Moore could have probably brought Bowman back. And then Michigan could have had like a higher ranked quarterback on the roster this year. But Michigan's quarterbacks on the roster after Harbaugh's late decision was Warren, who's a walk-on. I think Orji was a 3-star. And then Davis is like a 4-star, but he said he wasn't ready, which still kind of rubs me the wrong way. Oh, I'm not ready. I'm not going to play my first year. It's like, dude, now we're bringing in Underwood. Are you ever going to play? If Miller Moss transfers in, that guy's never playing. So if you're a freshman, I don't care. Didn't Henny play as a freshman? Like, you can play as a freshman quarterback. How many freshman quarterbacks played? Didn't Alar play for Penn State as a freshman a little bit?
He saw a little bit of time.
Yeah, you have to be ready to go. I know there's freshmen all around. I don't know off the top of my head which ones all played as freshmen. I think Hurts played as a freshman. Now, he was big. They can't even tackle him in the NFL when he was at Bama. But I saw Norvell. He was auditioning for Ohio State's coaching opening. Did you see about the flags?
Yes. I wasn't quite sure where you were going with there. Oh yeah, but you know, it was one of those like that fiery aspect of him. Like it took that to like snap him back to reality. It was like he had a hangover of a year.
Well, see, he saw Ryan Day just stand there dazed, and he thought, I can't do that. They're gonna make memes about me. I can't do that. I got to go crazy. Maybe they'll hire me. Ohio State. They need a guy, right? Soon. Because now it's like the Bears need a coach. Ryan Day's been rumored to the Bears every so often. It makes mutual sense this year if they don't win the national championship, or heck, even get bounced in the first round. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they get bounced in the first round and then Ryan Day's hired by the Bears the next week. And it's kind of like, oh, it's like a mutual thing. He wasn't preparing for the playoffs at all because he didn't care at that point. Because he probably has how many death threats this week? Like, you can't be giving your coach death threats and then say, well, we're going to do great in the playoffs. Right? Norvell, my thing with them is, doesn't Florida State dig up a piece of dirt from every field and take it home and make like a graveyard?
So, with that being said, there's like it's part of their tradition. It's sanctioned by like the colleges, and when they do it, like they work with the opposing school that they're doing it with, because there's certain restrictions that classify it a sod game. It's not like every week they're just cutting the field up. Like the rivalry games with like at Florida, at Miami always constituted, but then it's like if they're on the road and it's like they're the underdog and they pull the win off, it's a sod game. But with some of those sod games, like when they cut a section of the field out, they're also like sending money to the school to replace the damages, and it's done to a very particular like part of the end zone or something that like it's going to be inconspicuous, and it's not going to be like center of the field vandalizing their thing to where
vandalizing. So you're saying if we would have taped the check to the flagpole and shove it in there, then it'd be okay?
That's not part of your school. That's just you being a bunch of assholes.
For a photo op, dude, it's 2024. The guys can take a flag photo shoot. And every single team was doing it, though.
honestly, this was my thought to it. How much does this affect the playoffs then? Because all those guys that were fighting, are they charged? Are they suspended?
Oh no, they're not. The Big Ten's not doing anything.
And that's just it. So expect this nonsense to continue because it's not addressed. You have a perfect opportunity that you had three fights. You had the NC State UNC game, you had the Michigan game, you had the Florida State game. It's either something that's going to continue and you're going to allow it to happen, or you nip it in the bud. And that's the fastest way to make it stop. When you say those guys, all right, well, you fought. Now those players aren't eligible for the playoffs.
Well, then know, according to Ohio State, Sharon Moore personally sent flags to those other teams and said, "Hey, you need to do this and start a fight.
You need to do this. Take the pressure off of." Because that was the first thing that I thought was like, if you're dumb enough to get into a fight like that at the end of the game, emotions run high. You have to be prepared for it. That those guys aren't eligible for the bowl game then, or they're not eligible for the playoffs because they couldn't keep their composure, couldn't keep everything together. And now going into next year, what do you get? You guarantee that the stupidity stops.
Well, they got pepper sprayed, bro.
Exactly.
Well, see, it's not going to happen next year. Ohio State doesn't care if we plant the flag on our field.
So when Ryan Day leaves for the NFL and they get a competent coach that brings an offense with them, because I told you that was like the abstinence game because nobody wanted to score. It was like watching paint dry.
No, that was crushing.
It was really good. Everyone just kept missing field goals and throwing interceptions. It was like, no, Ohio State, you win it. No, Michigan, you win it.
Our guy didn't miss any field goals, bro. We just passed that one time. If we didn't pass, we wouldn't have had that problem.
We're just genuinely a bad team.
We just can't pass.
We both have
our top tight end
NILs of $1 billion, but that's okay. We don't want to score any points.
Our top tight end was hurt. What are we supposed to do, Matt? Can't put him out there.
Oh, come on. You have 19 tight ends on your roster. It was built in Harbaugh's image. You don't have any. You have one receiver, and he has a bad hamstring.
Dude, O'Leary, that Irish guy, came out with that crazy catch. And I was like, oh my gosh, redeeming himself for all those other drop balls all year. I don't even care. Just catch the ones against Ohio State. And then the crazy thing was when Mullings broke that touchdown, or not the touchdown run, the third down, like third and long. And I thought, well, here we are settling for a 50-yard field goal or 60-yard field goal. And I was thinking, Zavada's going to be legend status when he hits this. And Ohio State's guy can't even make a 15-yarder. Like, they're going to kill him. They're going to attack him after the game. But then Mullings broke it and took it all the way down. And I think I was trying to do the clock in my head. I thought Ryan Day called the second timeout on purpose. And this is the reasoning. Remember when Lanning did that against him? It was third down. If Michigan ran the ball 3rd and 2, they had just ran for 4 yards on first down and second down. If Michigan runs for another 4 yards on third down, that's going to eat off 40 seconds of clock, right? And then Ohio State would have had to use their 3 timeouts, or they had already used 1 or 2 or whatever. I tried to do it in my head, and I didn't go back and look. I think that if they were able to run the third down play, they would have been able to run one more play, and that would have took 40 more seconds off the clock. Ohio State would have only had 6 seconds or something left on the clock on kickoff. But because they took the 5-yard penalty and got the first down, it saved Ohio State a timeout. Like, it kind of gave them another timeout because the 10-second runoff and then whatever they did, because it was like a weird runoff thing there at the end. They did a 10-second runoff and then a 25-second clock or something, but they lost the other down. Like, they lost the third down. So that saved Ohio State one more timeout. And then it gave them, 40 seconds at the end of the game instead of 6. They almost had like a full minute. They didn't have any timeouts left, but it ensured that they got the ball back because it became 1st and goal. Michigan couldn't sit on the ball, and they had to try to score like the touchdown, which of course they're not going to pass it again, right? So after the game, they asked him about that, and he was like kind of blubbering about it. I thought, man, this is your chance to just say like, no, I did it on purpose because I knew that if we would get the ball back. I was guaranteeing that we would get the ball back and have a chance. but because like they didn't move the ball at all, he was kind of shell shocked. He didn't say that for sure, but I think if he would have said that, and maybe I'm giving him more credit than what I should, right? By calling the back-to-back timeouts, he didn't lose a timeout. They just gave him a 10-second runoff and Michigan a first down, which in theory saved them 30 seconds or 40 seconds, whatever it was. That's my conspiracy theory. And I thought, damn, that's good. I think the same thing. Like they need to let Michigan get a first down here, or they're gonna run out of timeouts. And then took the 12 men on the field penalty or whatever it was. But again, too much credit? I don't know. I don't like to dog on like Will Howard, but him talking trash on like Penn State. Like I talked to some Penn State fans. They were actively cheering for Ohio State. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Why aren't you cheering for Michigan? If Michigan wins, Penn State's in the Big Ten championship game. And they're like, oh, we're not going to beat Oregon. Would rather not be in that game. In fact, we don't even want to be in the playoffs because we're going to lose. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, baffled. Could you imagine if I had that mindset? Like, well, I wish my team was 7-5, Matt. Then we don't get embarrassed. I'm like, it's embarrassing for you not to make it. I was telling them, like, if you guys beat Ohio State every once in a while, then it wouldn't only be Michigan. Like, we would have some help. And they were like, yeah, we see your point, but we know we're not going to beat Ohio State. I'm like, why not? You guys are close to them every year. It's not like Michigan State when they play Ohio State and they're losing by 40-0 at halftime. Penn State's so close to beating them every single year that I'm like, if I was Franklin, I would call up Jim Harbaugh and I would say, buddy, we gotta have a chat about Ohio State. I guarantee Harbaugh would help him out. Right? All the Jay Harbaugh was tweeting about the game. All Harbaugh's old staff in the NFL was all tweeting about Ohio State and like the hanging 100 on them, like all the old comments. Franklin, I'd call up every single one of those guys in the NFL. And Jay Harbaugh, Minter, McDonald at Seattle, Harbaugh, and I'd be like, guys, what do I need to do? Obviously, you guys are just running the ball every time on them. And Ryan Day is like, I'm going to be... I think, Franklin, that's all he needs to say is like, we've been losing, but we're just tougher than Ohio State now, so we're going to beat them this year. Ryan Day would take that personally and try to run the ball 70 times. Because that's what... Remember when Notre Dame said that? And then he yelled at Lou Holtz after the game? Lou Holtz was like 80 years old, and he was saying Ryan Day's soft. And he's like, this is for Lou Holtz. That's what Penn State needs to do. Get in his head. Now, of course, if he's not coach next year, who knows? But I've been hearing some rumblings on Michigan's new offensive coordinator. I don't know. Chip Kelly is not doing anything. Brian Hartline, OC, is he going to be gone now? They really only kept him along just for recruiting. He's not the OC. Like, is he going to actually try to take an OC job somewhere else? Are any of these guys going to start leaving if Ryan Day leaves? Or because they don't want to have a Luke Fickell situation. He has Wisconsin falling apart. They lost their bowl streak, the first losing season in like 20 years or something like that. Crazy. How? Because he went in and said, you know what? We don't want to run Power Pro anymore. We're going to do West Coast offense or whatever, air raid. At Wisconsin, a state known for their wide receiver recruits. No, they're not. Luke Fickell. Maybe Ohio State will hire him. Then he can run the air raid. That's an offensive coach that you want, Matt, right? Or is he defense? I don't even know what he's supposed to be. I don't know. You want to talk a little bit about the ACC? I know I'm already spending the whole again, but I feel bad for the ACC getting ripped off in the playoff rankings.
Oh, you're not used to it?
Well, I'm used to it. That's why I sent you that meme people were trying to get to go viral about Ohio State having their center and their top tackle out. There's precedent, like Michigan had to miss the Rose Bowl in the 70s, and Florida State had to miss the playoffs last year because they had top guys out.
right? Obviously,
Singular. There was one single player.
That's what it was against Michigan in the 70s too. Quarterback, both times.
but the thing, when you looked at last year, and this is the whole thing for me with the playoffs. What specific criteria do you use to identify who the best people are? And I don't genuinely care which method you use. To me, they have these quote Power 5 conferences. If you're good enough to win your conference, you should be qualified. That should be the qualifying credential to get yourself into the playoffs. Because now you're taking the merit of the regular season games and you're making it count. Because if you can't, and this is a direct shot at Notre Dame too, where your status is, if you don't play a conference championship game, you don't get to move up because somebody else plays in a conference championship and loses. I don't think that you should gain additional points for that. Now, you have your Power Fives. Each of those conferences have a conference championship. Those are the two teams that, in theory, to me, should be there. And then if you do that, then you have your at-larges. It shouldn't be, well, this team hypothetically would crush them because, yeah, you have Texas doing it right now, but in theory, the Big 12 is such a god-awful conference. But how many times did Texas win the Big 12? It wasn't like they were blowing the door off year in and year out. They weren't winning the conference championship there either. So
No.
it's a stupid metric that you're going to say, well, Texas should definitely be in. And I thought it was stupid last year when you had Michigan and you had
Washington.
and you had Washington that were undefeated and they were conference champs as your 1 and 2. It's like, totally get that. At that point, that was a undefeated conference champion from a power conference. Made sense. Take your pick of 1 and 2. Don't really care. If you wanted to penalize Florida State for losing their quarterback, then you put them at 3 because they were an undefeated conference champion, and then it goes into who is number 4, who is most deserving. And then if it's Texas, if it's Bama, if it's Georgia, like however you want to spin the wheel on those, then so be it. And I think that carries over. If you do it that way last year, then it has weight going into this season, where you look at, right now you have in the ACC, you have SMU and Clemson vying for the conference championship, and you have Miami that completely is on the outside looking in at this point. So they went from all year one of the highest rated offenses, a potential Heisman Trophy candidate, a quarterback. They were checking every single box of a playoff caliber team, and I would think that they've been ranked relatively high throughout the year. I've joked over the past couple weeks that they've needed the refs to win some of those games, but you can't tell me that some of those games, it's been a mutt year. Everyone has had a game where there's some lower quality opponent is giving them trouble deep into a game. You look at Georgia for as much of a juggernaut as they're supposed to be. Let Georgia Tech hang with them for how long?
Georgia Tech should have beat them.
Yeah, and take that for what it's worth. It's not knocking Georgia Tech, but Georgia should probably blew them out by 48 points with the roster composite and all the other stuff that they have going for them. So I mean, when you look at all that, I feel like, hey, that there's not a standout team. And I don't get this, well, we're the SEC and we're just better than you. No, there's god-awful teams there, just like there's god-awful teams in the Big Ten. But just because you have a super conference and you've dissolved part of the Big 12, you've dissolved part of the Pac-12, and you've absorbed those teams doesn't mean, oh, yeah, we definitely deserve to make up 75% of the pool either, because that's a slap in the face to some of the other programs. And, I know a lot of it's driven, well, it's all driven by money, but you have these bigger, meaty people that are driving this. It's like, oh, well, this team should be in because of their fan base. Well, then don't call it the playoff. Just call it these are the people that are going to make the most money, and leave it at that. And then just have those schools with the strong alumni bases in the deepest pockets, and have that be your playoff. And because if that's the driving factor, don't sit here and try to make it out to be that it's this level playing field and that everyone has a chance, because you're already separating that with your Power Fives and your group of whatever. Group of remainders. So you have one or two spots that you have saved for them, but then you're going to overreach for some of these and then say, well, I don't understand why this is. Well, it's blatant. And I think if you value the conference slate, that's a component of it. But then I don't think it hurts college football that you allow more of those other conference. Like if you're a one-loss team, regardless of what conference you're in, I think you're a playoff. You are deserving of a spot in the playoff over a team that has 3 or 4 losses from the SEC or from the Big Ten. And if your conference is that good, then win your conference, and it's a non-factor. If you lost, I don't care who's in there. If you lose 3 or 4 games, well then tough shit, and enjoy the Pop-Tart Bowl. Or the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Like, it is what it is. And then have all your guys opt out and then bitch about it later.
Hey, I'm hoping Michigan makes the Duke Mayo Bowl so I can go to it. I don't think we'll get picked that low, but I'm like, please put us there. Because I went to see NC State play Maryland there a couple years ago. So I'm for it. And Charlotte, it's not a bad drive for me. So I think the team playoff that I do like, even with the Big Ten and the SEC getting so many teams pushed in, we're still seeing a lot of teams make the playoffs that we wouldn't have seen before. Penn State, in. Tennessee, in. SMU, I'll say that they're in, but who knows? Indiana, never in a million years, bro. Boise State, in if they win, right? Because there's still the automatic bid where people are saying, well, if Boise loses to UNLV, then UNLV's in. So this conference championship, that's a play-in game. Clemson playing SMU, to me, shouldn't be a play-in game. If anything, that should eliminate Bama. If Clemson wins, SMU should not fall out to put Bama in, right? So I think people, if you're an ACC fan, you kind of want to cheer for Clemson. The Big Ten game doesn't matter. Heck, if anything, if Penn State beats Oregon, Penn State could be the number 1 seed. That's what I was telling Penn State fans. You could be the number 1 seed. You don't even want Michigan to beat Ohio State, but if you beat Oregon, you're the number 1 seed. You get a bye. Yeah, you don't get the home game. Even if the highest ranked home game, they're not going to put Notre Dame over you. Notre Dame didn't play a bowl game. They lost to Northern Illinois. There's no way they're putting Notre Dame ahead of Penn State ever. Unless I'm wrong, and we'll see if the playoff, because they said that they're not going to penalize teams for the championship game. If Penn State gets killed by 40 points or something, maybe they'll drop them. But if it's a tough, tight game, Penn State's going to be the number 5 seed. It's an easy seed. You're going to be playing Boise and then whatever other teams after that, right? Easy peasy. You got the other game. I can't remember I sent you the thing. So Penn State would play, I think as of right now, Penn State would play, of the 12 seed would actually be Arizona State. So they would beat the Big 12 champ, and then they'd get Boise State, 2 of the easier teams in the entire thing. If they're the number 1 seed, they wouldn't get a home game. If they beat Oregon, say they're the number 1, then they would probably have to play the winner of Tennessee and Ohio State, which Penn State, I see you don't want that rematch, right? Although maybe it's what James Franklin needs to get over the hump. A neutral site Ohio State game where all the pressure's on Ryan Day. If Ohio State gets it, I don't think Ohio State should have kept the number 6 seed, if I'm being honest. Like, I thought they're going to get the last home game. Why? What did Tennessee do? They lost to Arkansas, yeah, by 5 on the road. They lost to Georgia on the road. Ohio State lost to Michigan at home. At home. A 6-5 team. Yeah, Arkansas is 6-6. Arkansas was on the road, though. So I don't see how you could say Ohio State's better than Tennessee. Tennessee also played NC State, and NC State didn't turn out to be good, but they crushed them. They're at least willing to play an ACC school. Ohio State played, they basically copied Michigan. Last year, Michigan had 3 warm-up games. Ohio State played Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall. No reason for people to consider them having a tough schedule. The only thing that pushes Ohio State over is the fact that Indiana ended up being ranked. But you could say that replaced Michigan, right? Where Michigan didn't end up being ranked. And so now they only have 3 ranked games: Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana. Ohio State does. And they're 2-1 in those games. And then they have the Michigan loss. Have Tennessee jump them. Have Tennessee jump them. That would have been my thought. But, of course, they're not going to give up an Ohio State home game, right? Notre Dame getting a home game. Who did they have them playing right now? They're playing.
Better not be Northern Illinois. They'll be losing again.
Oh, bro, it's Bama. So, in terms of Miami getting screwed, honestly, if we're being honest, that Alabama getting in there is going to just screw Notre Dame. I don't know if Notre Dame could beat Alabama. Notre Dame's been playing pretty good, but it would be funny if they got a home game, and then just got crushed by Bama. Not going to lie. And then that's setting up Bama for a run, because then they would play SMU. Yikes. We'd have a Bama, Texas, or Georgia on one side, and then a Penn State, Oregon, or Ohio State on the other side, most likely. So an all SEC versus Big 12, Big 10 thing. But again, that's my bias kicking in. I'm just picking the more talented teams, which I think is what people are doing when they look at Bama versus Miami. Because you can skew the metrics to say, like, hey, Miami has better wins or better losses than Bama. But just like the guy just picked the ones that favored Bama when he talked about it. He didn't talk about anything that Miami was ahead in. So that's why I don't like the committee. They can just make it up. Just go back to the BCS poll. Do strength of schedule, and then do like the efficiency or something. Make it public. Last time I think the BCS was closed, right? But it pretty much valued wins over anything. So in this point, like wins over BYU maybe sneaking in at 10-2. You could have Iowa State and Arizona State are going to kind of play themselves in or out. So it could be Iowa State for all we know. Iowa State versus Penn State. Awesome. I know we went long on college football, though. I have been impressed with Russell Wilson. I keep waiting for him to fall off. And then he made some great plays against the Bengals to where I was thinking maybe he is going to keep going. Right? They talked about how surprised they were that Fields didn't get any action in like his running package or whatever. And I thought, good. Why mix and match that in anymore? Save that for the playoffs if you need a wrinkle. Don't do it now. But the Steelers are humming. And it's kind of getting me excited because my fantasy team stinks. So I'm going to be out this year. I have nothing else to do. I don't even want to watch other NFL games. Because I'm like, oh, do I have a rooting interest in the Jets anymore? Heck no, I'm not watching them. I watch the Packers whip some butt. And that'll probably be it for me. And before I forgot to talk about some of that. Anything college or NFL you want to talk about?
Yeah, we got the big news. We had coordinator hirings for Florida State.
Oh yeah, didn't they hire him before the game?
It was like during the game.
Okay. Because I thought it was Malzone, right?
Yep, Gus Malzahn. Now it's being speculated that he was probably going to be pushed out at UCF at the end of the year anyhow. So it was like well, I'm just gonna move on before they have a chance to publicly can me.
Yeah, I saw that come across, but I was surprised that Florida State's already making moves this early.
They had to. I mean, to try, because the longer they delayed it, the worse it was going to be, because they could end up potentially lose. I mean, not that they've been thriving in recruiting anyhow. I mean, they've kind of made their living in the transfer portal, but I think to try to save any semblance of the staff or of the recruiting class, they had to be able to communicate to with signing day tomorrow, be like, hey, we have the main people in place. This is going to be what we're looking at. My initial reaction to the Malzahn hire, though, was like, this would have been great 15 years ago. Like, I don't know, as he's pushing 60, if it's the right fit.
That's what Ohio State said about Chip Kelly.
You know, it's like, what's better than having him when he was like coming off a national championship? Yeah, he coached there in 13, so it was like, huh. So now he has all this extra time, but I think with his background, hopefully he's able to bring his line coach Herb Hand with him. He's been all over the place, and he's a really good line coach that I think would help. The only thing that really scares me about the hire, I mean, aside from the age and how many more years is he going to go, but I think his run game has always been really sound. It's kind of been the passing game that's been more of a, like, it's more just, to me, deeper shots that I don't know. It always seemed like the knock that traditional wing T schools have, that your run game is strong, and you spend so much time developing this run game that then you're left a little light in the pants in the passing game, and it's built predominantly off of play action. Now, I have been obsessing over clips of UCF from last year, and it does look like, obviously, there's some evolution going on with his pass game and doing some things in the RPO world to take some pressure off. I mean, to me, the big thing that I liked with it was that he uses his quarterback in the run game, that I felt like Florida State should have been doing more of with the athletic quarterbacks that they had. For as lukewarm as I was with the Malzahn hire, having Tony White as the defensive coordinator, I'm hearing a lot of really good things about that. I kind of questioned how successful was it with being at Nebraska, but sometimes I think just having a completely different scheme from what we had is going to be a nice change of pace, because, I mean, personally, I've always been more of an even front coach and preferred even front to odd. But with the way that they're able to disguise coverages and do some of this other stuff on the back end, I'm curious to see what he brings to the table. And there's a sense of urgency in Norvell that I felt like was needed. And in years past, where we've talked with, when Jim Harbaugh was still at Michigan, he was firing coaches and moving on from guys, and guys were leaving for different positions. So, like, he was having coaching turnover. With Norvell, a lot of those guys that were there are the same guys that were there when he first got hired. And I feel like, there's a level of complacency that sets in if you don't have coaches cycling in and out. So I'm curious to see how this one plays out, because the reports seem to say that he's been a highly ranked defensive coordinator and was able to do some pretty nice things at Nebraska. So hopefully onward and upward for the Noles.
Yeah, I will say with signing day, a lot of those guys get locked up tomorrow, or it'll be already happened whenever this goes out. But I think I'm ready to see, like, are guys going to actually flip? Like, is Underwood going to sign with Michigan, and is he going to just start to practice right away? Because Michigan's been a king with Harbaugh was here of having guys enroll early and get those practices in, and then that way they're ready to go. Now, Underwood probably isn't going to play as a freshman, maybe, but he could. wasn't it Tebow that played like just certain packages as a freshman? Because Underwood runs a lot better than I expected when I watch his highlights. So like bringing in Miller Moss or something, and then having him be kind of like the change of pace, like the Steelers were doing with Fields, would be a good idea. I just don't know what offensive coordinator. I don't know if you really need an offensive coordinator for signing day. It's just going to be some of the guys that I thought were going to be on the table might not be on the table. Like if Lincoln Riley gets fired, is that an option? Is he going to get a head coaching job somewhere, do you think? Or would he be forced out as a coordinator? Same with like Venables too. Will they be Bama? He was on the outs. Is that someone going to give him another head coaching job when he failed at such a big school? I think he'll have to go the Chip Kelly route, right?
Yeah. Or that may even be a deal where if he were to get let go, that he just goes back to Clemson and rides out the rest of his career with Dabo.
Yeah. Or he just takes over.
Because, I mean, I think, like, that's kind of a advantageous spot because you know that there's that past history that he's going to be left alone to call the defense, and they're definitely good with his play calling ability.
Yeah, that's true. But we'll see what happens. I'm kind of excited now with some of the NIL stuff coming to see if any Big Ten schools step up. Because I think to your point with the other conferences getting left behind, it's going to be hard for like the ACC to say, hey, we deserve like 2 or 3 teams if the recruiting and everything keeps going in the other conference's favor. Like at some point you have to win, like Clemson was able to do. Clemson won with lower recruiting rankings. They got the respect then where people are willing to put them in this year. If they were there, they're one of the higher three loss teams behind the 3 SEC teams. Like they're even ahead of 3 loss Missouri, Illinois, Colorado, Syracuse. Like they have the respect, but they had to win first to get it. Right. Like with Michigan, Sherrone Moore, I don't think he has the respect Harbaugh had. And deservedly so, right? So some of the guys, programs like Miami, they're not going to get the respect until they get that chance. But then Cristobal, like, what are you doing against teams that you should be killing? Well, you know, these close games, I don't get it. But heck, Tressel was in a lot of close games when they won that first national championship at Ohio State in forever, right? They're barely beating teams like Purdue. And even Miami in the championship game, they were barely beating them. Took that phantom pass interference. So, I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
Nah.
All right. Well, I pretty much dominated the show, but it was worth it. I hope you liked it. I hope Ryan Day listens. Maybe he can get some keys on what he needs to do. Come out, be looser. He tried to do that everyone in a circle where he was blowing the whistle and they were mosh pitting him last year. Or maybe that was 2 years ago. Didn't work. This year he took the opposite where he just stood there with no expression. Like a kid getting yelled at school. Zoned out. He's like, oh, what happened? That's how I'm going to go about my work day. Huh, what happened? I didn't know. So thanks for listening and we will see you next week.